The Postman. In speedruns of Twilight Princess, we tend to try to avoid him. There are only a few categories on the leaderboard that require meeting him at all, and at present, none of them requires receiving all 16 letters from him. That's why, until recently, we in the speedrunning community had only a vague sense of which prerequisites triggered each of the 16 letters. But then I did some testing, and it occurred to me based on my findings that while some players probably did get all 16 letters in casual playthroughs, it's very likely that no one has ever gotten all 16 letters at once before. So I did that. It was a fun little routing and game knowledge challenge, and I'll show in this video how I did it. But first, we need to go over some background info. The Postman gets around. He can be found inspecting some mail in some of the farthest reaches of Hyrule, from the floor of Telma's bar, to the barn in Orden Ranch, to some wooden scaffolding in Zora's River, to floor 50 of Cave of Ordeals, to the Eld Inn, to the throne room in Zora's domain. Maybe he came to sniff this guy's queen. Across the map, there are also 12 places where he'll stop Link to deliver some letters to him. These are the Postman triggers. They're designed to be in the way, and some are meant to be unavoidable, as letters are used to help direct the player at points in a casual playthrough. But in speedruns, we usually avoid Postman triggers because watching a 15-second long cutscene tends to be slower than not watching a 15-second long cutscene. This is easily done. Postman triggers are rings, as made visible here by the speedrun practice tool TPGZ. If Link is anywhere between the inner green ring and the outer red ring, the Postman will catch him. So for a Postman trigger like this one in Farinfield that blocks the entire path to Eldin, speedrunners on the GameCube and Wii U versions of the game will stand very near where the trigger intersects this wall and use a boomerang long jump attack to just barely squeeze past the trigger before landing. Boomerang long jump attacks aren't possible on the Wii version of the game, but in the North American Wii 1.0 version, which is the one most commonly used for Wii speedruns, the inner and outer bounds of the Postman triggers are closer together, so close that Wolf Link's jump attack can clear them. Skipping this trigger then is a matter of jumping into the ring and then back out on the other side. I actually learned while making this video that until you meet the Postman for the first time, the 3 Postman triggers that normally exist in Farinfield are never active, and a different active one exists at the entrance to Eldin that completely blocks the path rather than only mostly blocking it, and that's the one that we skip in speedruns. Neat. Anyway, even aside from that, Postman triggers aren't always active. The Postman will only stop Link if he has a letter to give him, and all the letters have prerequisites. For instance, the Wii Any% speedrun goes straight to Farinfield at the beginning of the run, so the same Postman trigger we were looking at earlier isn't there yet, because no letter's conditions have been met. But as soon as I've met the conditions for any letter that I don't already have, all Postman triggers in the game activate, and the next time I hit any of them, the Postman will give me all of the letters that I don't already have, whose conditions I've met, which may be more than one letter at a time. So the plan is simple. To get all 16 letters at once, I just need to avoid Postman triggers until I've fulfilled the prerequisites for all the letters, then hit a trigger. But there's a small catch, which we'll see momentarily when we go through what the conditions for the letters are. The letters aren't meant to arrive in the exact same order for every playthrough, so I'll just go through them in a reasonable order for a casual playthrough. Let's begin. Letter 1 is from none other than the Postman introducing himself. This letter is available after you beat the Forest Temple, and it's always supposed to be the first letter that you get. After Forest Temple, any casual playthrough would hit the Farinfield Postman trigger on the way to Eldin, so the Postman's text is unique here, referencing the nearby Wall of Twilight. Letter 2 is from Kakariko Goods, later known as Mallow Mart. It's available after you defeat King Bulblin 1, which is when Mallow opens the general store in Kakariko Village. Letter 3 is from Barnes Bombs regarding bomb arrows, and is available after you buy the bomb bag from Barnes. The bomb bag is available only after Eldin Twilight has been cleared, King Bulblin 1 defeated, and Goron Mines beaten. This is the first of 4 letters that I can think of a way to permanently miss without putting the game in an unfinishable state. Barnes will only sell the bomb bag if there isn't already a bomb bag in the inventory, so using glitches to steal a permanent bomb bag from Isa, like the current Any% route does, makes it impossible to ever get the bag or the letter from Barnes. Letter 4 is from Lanayru Tourism regarding the minigames in Lanayru, and is available after you clear Lanayru Twilight. Letter 5 is from Barnes, and is also available after you clear Lanayru Twilight. This letter is a pack of lies. It says that Barnes has started selling water bombs, but he doesn't actually start selling water bombs until you get the Zora armor. But this isn't a mistake. Between clearing Lanayru Twilight and getting the Zora armor, there's no way to get to Barnes' bomb shop to verify his wares without glitches, so a casual player would never encounter a discrepancy. The 2 intended paths back to Kakariko at this point in the game are blocked by a very tall gate and a bottomless pit. Letter 6 is from Telma regarding the Resistance, and is available after you pick up the Master Sword. Letter 7 is from Malomart concerning the magic armor, and is available after you open the Castletown Malomart, which means donating lots of rupees at the Kakariko Village Malomart. Letter 8 is from Barnes again, this time about selling bomblings. It's available after you defeat Stalebread, and while it isn't technically a pack of lies, he actually starts selling bomblings after you defeat Morpheal and just doesn't tell you for a dungeon. What a jerk. Letter 9 is from Agatha, as if you couldn't tell from reading it, and it's available after you've both beaten Snow Peak Ruins and given Agatha at least one golden bug, regardless of the order those two things are done in. Yetta also sends a letter after you've beaten Snow Peak Ruins, and this 10th letter invites you to play the snowboarding minigame. Letter 11 comes from Renato after you beat Temple of Time. This one is a big story driver, initiating Ilya's memory quest and the Skybook quest. Letter 12 is from Shad, and is available after you fill the ancient Skybook with the 6 Sky characters. This is another permanently missable letter, though like the one from Barnes Bombs, missing it does require glitches. The entire Skybook quest is skippable with a transform clip to get to the Sky Cannon early, like we do in many speedruns. And while the 6 Sky characters are still available after the quest is meant to be over, some sequence breaks here make it impossible ever to repower the Dominion Rod, which makes the Sky characters impossible to collect. Letters 13 and 14 are from Perlo and Uku Jr., both available after you beat City in the Sky. Perlo is advertising the Star minigame in Castletown, and Jr. thinks you're awesome. And he's right. Finally, letters 15 and 16 are the tricky ones. These two round out the 4 permanently missable letters, but it's possible and even easy to miss them without using glitches. Both letters are from Uku. One is available if you meet Uku in a dungeon and then beat the dungeon without ever using her. The letter thanks you for the excitement and mentions that Uku has a son that you'll meet if you use her in a later dungeon. The second letter then is available if you meet Uku in a dungeon, use her and Uku Jr. to leave and re-enter the dungeon respectively, and then beat the dungeon. This applies to the first 5 dungeons, Forest Temple through Snow Peak Ruins. The 6th dungeon, Temple of Time, tries to force you to meet Uku, and Uku use there and in the remaining dungeons can't trigger these letters. A bit of misinformation passed down over the years is that one or both of these letters has something to do with the Forest Temple Uku specifically, and while this is perhaps the least insidious falsehood ever repeated on the internet, I will go out of my way to debunk it in this video. The easy way to miss both of these letters is to ignore Uku entirely, but you can also get locked out of the letter for not using Uku by getting the letter for using Uku first. This makes sense because if you've already used Uku, then you've already met her son, so she doesn't need to introduce him in a letter anymore even if you don't meet him again in the next dungeon. This makes my goal of getting all 16 letters at once tricky. If, for example, I meet but don't use Uku in one dungeon, then meet and use Uku in the next dungeon without having gotten the first letter yet, I'll only receive the second letter when I do encounter the Postman. So I guess I can't do it. I give up. I'll never amount to anything. It's a cruel and terrible world we live in. Anyway, I found a workaround. Each Uku letter is designed to be triggered when you beat whatever dungeon you got the Uku in. The game doesn't take into account the case of getting an Uku in one dungeon and then finishing a different dungeon, which is only possible with glitches. I figured out that if I get Uku in one dungeon, leave that dungeon on foot without using Uku, beat a different dungeon without touching its Uku, return to the first dungeon on foot, use Uku to exit and re-enter that dungeon, and then beat that dungeon, then the second letter will not overwrite the first, and the Postman will give me both of Uku's letters the next time I encounter him. In any percent speedruns, we meet the conditions for 5 letters, though ideally we skip all of the Postman triggers and don't actually receive the letters. All dungeon speedruns bring that number up to 11, and Glitchless Any Percent brings it up to 12 and does receive all of them from the Postman. 100% brings it up to 14, though because it only hits one Postman trigger and that's 2 hours before the end of the run, it only receives 11 of those 14. Even runs of 100% plus currently only get 15 letters. But, armed with all of the preceding information, I made a route and did a run that received all 16 letters from the Postman at once. The perfect combination of probably never been done, and really not all that impressive. I think the best way to present this route will be to discuss the obstacles and their solutions first, then go through the route knowing those solutions. I'm just going to outline the route here, but if you want to see the entire run or read the entire route, check the links in the video description. Also, because my focus today is on routing, my glitch explanations will be quite a bit shorter than in my fully commentated runs, so check those out if you want much more detailed information on glitches and tricks. Compared to some other Twilight Princess challenges, this one doesn't have all that many obstacles. After all, it's trivial to get 15 of the 16 letters at once with a glitchless playthrough plus some Postman trigger skips, the missing letter being one of Uku's because of what I explained a minute ago. So the main concerns I had were to do with Uku's letters, and a niche game crash that I was aware of. Let's talk about the crash first. Shad's letter, once again, requires filling the Skybook, which means obtaining the Skybook from Impaz in Hidden Village. The intended way to access Hidden Village is to follow Ilya's memory quest, getting Renato's letter, the invoice, the medicine sent, and the wooden statue, then giving the wooden statue to Ilya to send Darbus to Hidden Village. Here's the problem. Giving the wooden statue to Ilya crashes the game if you never got the Zora armor. The keen-eyed observer may have noticed on my way to Ilya that there were not one but 2 Renatos in the sanctuary. It turns out that skipping the Zora armor screws up the state of the sanctuary, and while I personally think the more Renatos the merrier, the game thinks that too many Renatos spoil the broth, and crashes when it tries to start the cutscene of Ilya receiving the statue. I discovered this crash in late 2022 at a very inconvenient time. Now, I could just have routed the Zora armor in, but that would be pretty slow. Helpfully though, the only thing blocking access to Hidden Village before giving Ilya the wooden statue is a rock wall, and there are multiple ways around this wall. Using Epona out of bounds to get to Hidden Village early is not a new trick, but as far as I know, it's never been useful in speedruns, because 100% is the only main glitched category that has to visit Hidden Village at all, and using going to Hidden Village early to skip getting the wooden statue locks you out of getting the horse call, which is required in 100%. But for this run, early Hidden Village opens up the possibility of skipping the Zora armor if only I can make the dungeon routing work. Further, it opens the possibility of skipping Midna's Desperate Hour, which is only really necessary for getting to Hyrule Castle, something not required for any letters. White Midna glitch is beating Lakebed Temple before clearing Lanayru Twilight, leaving Midna not looking her best, but still with the ability to warp without completing Midna's Desperate Hour. This is incompatible with getting the Zora armor, because the Zora armor is only available between clearing Lanayru Twilight and beating Lakebed Temple, and that time period just doesn't exist with the two done in the opposite order. So as long as I can make it work with dungeon order, early Hidden Village enables me to skip Zora armor, Midna's Desperate Hour, and Ilya's memory quest, all while avoiding the double Renato crash. So how about those dungeons? To get both of Uku's letters at once, I need to get one dungeon's Uku, leave that dungeon without using Uku, beat another dungeon, return to the first dungeon, use Uku to exit and re-enter, and then beat that dungeon. So I need to make a dungeon sandwich somewhere in the route, and the 5 dungeons relevant to Uku's letters left several combinations to consider. The bread dungeon ideally would have a convenient Uku, be easy to exit and re-enter without using Uku, and not conflict with skipping Zora armor and Midna's Desperate Hour. Forest Temple fits the bill perfectly, with Uku right on the way to the boss key and a warp portal right outside the dungeon, but I want to conclusively debunk the myth that Forest Temple Uku is required for Uku's letters, so I won't use it despite it very likely being the fastest choice. I considered routes with the other 4 dungeons as the bread dungeon, and in the end, Lakebed Temple won out because there's a useful way to exit it without Uku, re-entering it without Uku goes very well with White Midna glitch, and having the claw shot early is useful. Picking a dungeon to fill my dungeon sandwich was a bit easier. To skip the Zora armor, I need to get a bomb bag before re-entering Lakebed Temple so that I can fight Morpheal using an air refill glitch with water bombs. Clearing Lanayru Twilight makes Iza's bomb bag available, but since I need to clear Lanayru Twilight after beating Lakebed Temple for White Midna glitch, and I need Barnes' bomb bag for a letter anyway, it makes more sense for my sandwich filling to be Goron Mines, which is a prerequisite for Barnes' bomb bag. Snowpeak Ruins will also end up in the sandwich, as getting into Goron Mines after getting the Master Sword isn't trivial, and beating Snowpeak Ruins is one way of doing it. For a much more detailed explanation of how Snowpeak Ruins is relevant, check my commentated All Dungeons run. Anyway, sandwich complete. I'll get Uku from Lakebed, beat Snowpeak Ruins and Goron Mines without using Uku, return to Lakebed, use Uku, and then beat Lakebed. In fact, the current All Dungeons speedrun route features the exact same dungeon sandwich, but as we'll see, I'll have to change a few things up because the context is different. But without further ado, the route. The route begins with a standard speedrun opening because none of the letters restrict me from doing skips very early on. Hence the speedrun familiar gate clip and back in time save, which skips a chunk of Orden Village and lets me get the Iron Boots and Epona early. Just like in any percent, I use this Bulblin to get into Farron without needing the Orden Shield, Sword, or Portal, but unlike any percent, I cleared Farron Twilight. Clearing Farron isn't necessary to beat the game, but it has quite a few routing implications, so the question of whether to clear it or not can be the source of varied route options for a speedrun category. But for this challenge, clearing Farron is necessary even though none of the standard reasons for needing to clear the Twilight apply. I don't need to warp the bridge to the Kakariko Gorge, I don't need to get rid of the barrier blocking the path back to Orden Bridge, I don't need to use a cleared Farron Twilight save to use Back in Time Equip to get to Kakariko Village, and I don't strictly need to get text displacement from Russell or Koro, or learn a hidden skill from the Golden Wolf in front of Forest Temple, though I did do both of those things. What I do need is the Farron Sky character for the letter from Shad, and there's no way to get it if the area is still in Twilight because the owl statue isn't loaded. So I was set on clearing Farron Twilight. Just like in most glitched speedruns, I got the Master Sword early by super jumping off the North Farron Shadow Beast to get to the Sacred Grove. Getting the Master Sword was the prerequisite for the letter from Telma, my first of the 16, though of course I wouldn't see the letter until much later. I then warped back to South Farron and made my way through Farron to finish clearing the Twilight, then warped to North Farron to get Ending Blow and enter the Forest Temple. If I'd made this route last year, I'd have skipped Ending Blow because it's only strictly required for defeating Ganondorf, something this run doesn't need to do. But now it's also used in Pogate Skip in Arbiter's Grounds, which saves enough time that it's worth learning Ending Blow just to be able to do it. After that I entered Forest Temple, which is very streamlined with glitches. For debunking purposes, I did not interact with Uku on my way to beating Diababa and earning my second letter, the one from the Postman. In most circumstances, the next step in the game is to head to Kakariko Village, but I had other plans because of my dungeon sandwich. First, I rode Epona to Farron Field and skipped the Postman trigger in exactly the same way that I showed earlier in this video to avoid getting the 2 letters that I'd earned already. At the Gorge, I got map warping by taking the forced warp back to Farron. This was necessary for getting to Snow Peak Ruins without having cleared Lanayru Twilight, which, as I said earlier, I needed to do for this route. It also had some other benefits that we'll get to. But from Farron, instead of warping the bridge to the Gorge as intended, I rode to Lanayru. On the way, or roughly on the way, I grabbed both golden bugs in Farron Field. Across this run, I needed to spend 120 rupees buying Barnes Bomb Bag for a letter, 1,200 rupees opening Castletown Malamart for another letter, and 300 rupees fixing the Sky Cannon to beat City in the Sky for 2 letters. That's 1,620 rupees in total. Giving golden bugs to Agatha is a convenient way to get a lot of rupees fairly quickly, and I needed to give her at least one anyway to earn her letter, so these 2 golden bugs were the first of many in this route. With both golden bugs in hand, I clipped through the gate to Lanayru and made my way up to Zora's domain to open the warp portal. Then, in a move never seen in speedruns, I went back down to Lake Hylia from frozen Zora's domain. This isn't even supposed to be possible, but I can make it to the Kargarock grass in Upper Zora's River with a long jump attack, then crash the Kargarock to skip flying all the way down Zora's River. Typically, if you're going to enter Lakebed Temple early, it makes sense to do it before going to Zora's domain rather than after, but we'll see in a moment why I did it this way. Anyway, I then did Pillar Clip to enter Lakebed Temple early, taking my first bite of the dungeon sandwich. I picked Uku up, got the claw shot, save warped, and fought King Bulblin? No, King Bulblin didn't succeed Morpheal as the new boss of Lakebed. One common method of getting to Kakariko Village for the first time in speedruns is a glitch called Back in Time Equipped, or BITE. In short, saves made in certain locations in the game can be used to load directly into the King Bulblin 1 fight, which ends in Kakariko, and Lakebed Temple is one of those locations. Using BITE from Lakebed is typically slow for speedruns because it means needing to return to Lakebed again later to finish it without using Uku. But since that's exactly what I need to do for my Uku letters anyway, it fits nicely into this route. That's especially true if you consider that I don't have any other way of leaving Lakebed without Uku at this point. The exit tunnel is too long. So, after getting the claw shot, I saved and used BITE to load my file into the King Bulblin 1 fight, escaping Lakebed without using Uku, finally making it to Kakariko, and earning the letter from Kakariko Goods for having fought King Bulblin 1. Then I cleared the Twilight. Clearing Elden Twilight was necessary for quite a few things, most directly buying the bomb bag from Barnes and starting Lanayru Twilight. Then, since I was in Kakariko already, I collected both of the local golden bugs. Next, I continued my dungeon sandwich by heading to Snow Peak Ruins. But since I couldn't clear Lanayru Twilight beforehand, I was blocked by a wall of ice. Rats. I got around it using a glitch called Map Glitch, which is the one thing that I really needed to learn map warping for in this run. If you warp the rock from Death Mountain to flood Zora's domain, there's enough water that if you use Map Glitch to get out of bounds without hitting a load zone or voiding, you can long jump attack into some out of bounds water and swim behind the ice wall. This trick is earlier Snow Peak, and it's fairly obscure, currently only appearing in the Pirate RTA speedrun category. For most RTA speedruns, it makes sense not to go to Snow Peak until after clearing Lanayru Twilight, at which point the ice wall is gone. I then used Map Glitch again to ascend Snow Peak without the blizzard voiding me out, skipped the Snow Peak portal, and descended to Snow Peak Ruins in the fog. The Snow Peak Ruins route was a little unusual because I wanted both orange rupees and also wanted to beat Blazetta. So after getting the ball and chain, I made a brief excursion to the cheese room for 1 orange rupee, save warped to get the other orange rupee in the lobby, and then returned to the courtyard and Blazetta. After that fight, I'd earned Yetta's letter and the first of Uku's letters. The base wallet in this game has a capacity of 300 rupees, and I was nearing that limit at this point, so before heading to Goron Mines, I made a detour to complete part of Lineru Twilight. There's one Twilight bug in Castletown, so I used that as an excuse to visit Agatha and give her my 4 golden bugs for some rupees and the big wallet, upping my rupee capacity to 600 and earning me Agatha's letter. It was helpful to do this now so I wouldn't have to skip the convenient rupees in Goron Mines. Next I got text displacement from Russell, entered Goron Mines, and beat it in much the same way that an all dungeons run would, including opening both purple rupee chests. This was the final prerequisite for buying the bomb bag from Barnes, earning me the letter from Barnes Bombs. With the bomb bag, I could now finally defeat Morpheal, as long as I could get back into Lakebed. To do so, I did some more of Lineru Twilight, this time getting all the way to the final hit on the boss bug, but instead of killing it, I waited, because I'm such a nice guy. During a 2-frame window at the end of the boss bug's vulnerable period, I pulled out Uku's note to get a cutscene dive, putting Link in some out-of-bounds water right near the entrance to Lakebed. I couldn't have done Pillar Clip again because the water level was too high and I would have run out of air. There is one faster way that I could have achieved the same thing, which is to cutscene dive off of a floating plank instead of the boss bug. I used fast strats for most of this run, but in this case I made a concession to the cool factor because I'd never seen anyone do the boss bug cutscene dive before, and the cutscene dive off the plank is kind of annoying. Having taken these pains to get back into Lakebed, I met back up with Uku, filled my bomb bag with water bombs in preparation for Morpheal, and left again, this time using Uku to fulfill the requirements of the second Uku letter. Back out at Lake Hylia, I killed the boss bug for real this time because I'm such a mean guy, but instead of collecting the tier, I Uku'd back into Lakebed. Remember, I needed to beat Lakebed before clearing the Lineru Twilight, and I wouldn't have been able to kill the boss bug after beating Lakebed because I couldn't use the Midna charge attack. This was it, the end of my dungeon sandwich. I beat Morpheal just as an all dungeons run would, earning Uku's second letter, then save warped to get back to Lake Hylia and collected the boss bug's tier to clear Lineru Twilight. This gave me White Midna glitch, skipping Midna's Desperate Hour, as well as earning me a letter from Barnes, telling me lies, and the Lineru Tourism letter. Only a few letters left to go. On my way to Arbiter's Grounds, I picked up both golden bugs in the desert and opened the Mesa Warp Portal in preparation for the Skyboat quest. Conveniently, White Midna glitch makes it nighttime, so I was able to get past the Boblin campfire without getting caught. I still needed rupees, so I opted not to use map glitch to get to King Boblin 3 early in the Boblin camp, instead opening the 50 rupee chest right by the key. As has been the theme so far, Arbiter's Grounds itself was about the same as in an Old Dungeons run, except that I fought Stanford instead of skipping it so that I could earn the last letter from Barnes. Having map warping came in handy here because the game tries to prevent you from warping away from the mirror chamber without opening the portal and raising the mirror, but it's still possible to warp from the map if you press Z while zoomed in fully, so I skipped both of those things. Next up was Temple of Time, which was identical to an All Dungeons run. Normal stuff. That earned me Renato's letter. The 4 letters still remaining are for opening Castletown Malomart, repowering the Dominion Rod, and beating City in the Sky. 100% runs need to do all of these things as well, and Cincelia's Memory Quest and opening Castletown Malomart both involve trips to Castletown and Kakariko Village. They route well together. But recall that for this run, I can go to Hidden Village early because I don't care about getting locked out of the horse call. So since there's not that much to line up together anymore, I donated the rupees that I had to Malomart, then headed out to Elden Field for early Hidden Village. The idea is just to reach the entrance to Hidden Village out of bounds. So I used map glitch again to deactivate load zones, then rode Epona out of bounds to a place that I'd be able to reach her from inbounds. I save warped to get rid of map glitch so that I'd be able to use the Hidden Village load zone at the end, then got back onto Epona to get out of bounds, and rode Epona all the way around the map to Hidden Village. I kept Epona pretty far from the field to avoid ever having ground collision below her, which would have made her drop down to the ground. Getting to Hidden Village this way is actually pretty slow, so even if it didn't lock you out of the horse call, it might not be used in 100% to skip parts of Ilia's memory quest, because each step in the quest is near other things that are required for 100% anyway. It was crucial for skipping Zora Armor and Midna's Desperate Hour in this run though, so it was definitely worth it. For all the effort, I got the Ancient Skybook from Impaz, which is all I needed. To refill on rupees for more Malomart donations and for paying Fire to fix the Sky Cannon, I next went to Castletown, picked up some golden bugs and rupees, and visited Agatha once more, skipping the Postman for surprisingly only the second time so far. Because I didn't finish Midna's Desperate Hour, it was still raining and permanently nighttime in Castletown. On this trip, I also spoke to the Goron east of Castletown, so I could do the hot spring water minigame, which makes opening Castletown Malamart 1,800 rupees cheaper. Now at this point it was nighttime, meaning Malamart was closed and I couldn't donate any rupees. After repowering the Dominion Rod, I could have gone around to all the Sky characters to spend the nighttime so that I could donate again, but it was far more efficient to instead clip past the owl statue to warp the Sky Cannon and get to City in the Sky early, another thing that I could only do because I had map warping. As an aside, you'll know if you've seen my commentated All Dungeons run that there is a way to do this without map warping, but as it's incompatible with repowering the Dominion Rod, something that All Dungeons doesn't need to do, it wouldn't have worked for this run. Like most of the dungeons before, City in the Sky was straight out of a normal speedrun. This earned me 2 more letters, and importantly, made it daytime again so Malamart was open. I got the silver rupee from the Kakariko Sanctuary Bell to get my Malamart donation total up to 1,000 rupees, which allowed me to do the hot spring water minigame. Again, I didn't need the heart piece, I just wanted to reduce the cost of opening Castletown Malamart. This segued into collecting the Sky characters, starting with the Bridge of Eldon, and collecting 200 rupees from chests at the Lake Hylia Bridge and Garuda Mesa Sky character puzzles for my final donation. I left the Kakariko Gorge Sky character for last. I couldn't warp directly to that area because I hadn't warped the bridge earlier, so I warped to Kakariko Village and donated to finally open Castletown Malamart on my way out, earning my penultimate letter. Just outside was the final Sky character, earning me my final letter, and right next to the Sky character was a convenient Postman trigger. Just for funsies, I used Map Glitch to hit it from the void floor to make it look like this. Finally, after all that, the Postman said he was only giving me 1 letter. What the heck? Thankfully, he only said this because this was the first time I encountered him. And as I mentioned earlier, he has special text for the planned first encounter in Fair and Field, but he uses this special text for the first encounter regardless of where it is. He still gave me all the letters. Here's my pause menu before hitting the trigger, nothing on the letters slot. And here it is afterwards, all 16 letters. The ultimate delivery. Read 'em and weep. This idea was fun, learning about it, routing it, running it. As far as Twilight Princess challenge runs go, the route I ended up with is very much on the tame side, but it did at least put me in a few uncommon situations. I doubt anyone will run this again, but who knows. Onward to mail.